the beginning of Post's career, when all the sharks came out.
So I know you had to come up with $25,000 in 30 minutes to save Post Malone's video shoot, which definitely saved the career and took him to where he is right now.
Me and you discussed it when I was in South Africa. Yeah. You knew before everyone else, and now the world is, not the world, just even people that was close was trying to put bad words or maybe say things that didn't interpret the right energy towards moving forward. And it's a good question. I don't see myself as, oh, he's just a music manager. Or, yeah, he just discovered Post Malone, or he just manages Tyga. Like, no, bro, I'm an entrepreneur.
Hi, it's Robin Sharma, and you're tuning into the Millionaire Student Show with Sashin.
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 Welcome to another episode on the Millionaire Student Show, where I get the opportunity to pick the minds of this generation's thought leaders, change makers, disruptors, innovators, and inspirations. Dissect their story from the pain they went through, the price they paid, and what their prize looks like today. I formulated the Millionaire Student Self-Development System and company because this is what I was looking for. When I first entered the entrepreneurial world at 17 years old, my mission and purpose is to serve you with virtual mentorship to consciously make your clock tick without taking the thunder away from today's guest. He was born in London, moved to America with a vision of living the American dream and hopes of succeeding in life, starting his career in London with an artist from the United Kingdom that he believed could break in the United States. He hit the ground running. 2008 was the official start to his career, where he started to network really hard in New York City, meeting various executives, producers, and artists like French Montana Jadakiss, Max B, and many more. Once in New York City, he rented out a studio in Dumbo, Brooklyn, where he put together such records as French Montana and Jadakiss, NY Minute, French Montana's breakout single, Shotcaller, and over the next couple of years, started to learn the ins and outs of the music business before moving his operations to Los Angeles. Since moving to LA, he hasn't looked back. He is an entrepreneur, the founder of London Entertainment, in which he manages two of the hottest artists in the world currently. He created the multi-platinum artist from zero to 20 million US dollars, Post Malone, and just recently he took on a $5 million asset, Tyga, under his wing. Prior to that, he and Post Malone just launched their new wine called Maison No.9. He has bridged the gap between work and play, and now he's a master in the art of living. I had the opportunity to spend some time with him backstage at a Post Malone concert. He has become a great friend of mine. We had dinner in South Africa and breakfast in Los Angeles. Although you get the good and the bad in the music industry, but this is one of the most authentic guys you will meet. The Millionaire Students, please help me in welcoming today's guest with the vision of the American dream and a one-way plane ticket from Heathrow to JFK in 2008. He hasn't looked back. Dre London. Dre, the first time you and I connected was when we had drinks in South Africa and then backstage at Post Malone's concert and then eventually breakfast at the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills. And, you know, winner will always recognize another winner. And that's what I saw in you with your work ethic, the balance of mastering the art of living, and most importantly, your humility. But I truly want to thank you for your time and thank you for being on the Millionaire Student Show today, Dre.
Thank you, Sashin, and thank you everyone at home that's taking the time out to watch. Thank you. You know already, I'm definitely admirer of your work. Like, I've seen everything you do and I've seen how you inspire people across the world. And I remember meeting you in South Africa. I remember when we met. I just felt the energy, and I felt what you did, and that it wasn't fake. It wasn't like he was coming from somewhere that wasn't genuine. And that resonated with me. And then to find someone on the other side of the world that had the same entrepreneurial force, the same entrepreneurial spirit, didn't matter where you came from, where I came from, our minds connected through energy and connected through both wanting the same thing, both wanting to drive the family name and push what we could do with us being on earth to the next level, if that makes sense.
I got the chance to truly get to know you and, be around you, as well as, my team and I did some extensive research on the price you paid, the price you went through in your foundation, the price you paid to get to where you are, and the price you're living right now. And sadly, I believe you don't get the recognition you truly deserve. But for those who don't know, who don't have a clue who Dre London is, what is your foundation like?
Wow. My foundation is from Brixton, South London. It all started as a young boy in London, growing up in Brixton, South London. Learning the values from, I guess, my Jamaican parents who had moved to the UK in the 60s, in the Windrush era, where like my grandfather, my grandmother, and many older Jamaicans left from Jamaica on ships to go to the UK after World War II. So basically, my grandparents did the dirty work of cleaning up back the United Kingdom. And that time, everyone came over and was cleaning up the United Kingdom after the World War II. So these days, there wasn't a visa system. There wasn't a system. It was if you could afford to get a ticket to get on the I won't call it a yacht. If you could get a ticket to get on the boat where they were shipping beings across the world from different parts to different parts. And my grandparents left. I think my grandfather left to be a street cleaner in the UK and a bus driver. And my grandmother was working in hospitals and stuff like that. And that was how I would say that my existence came. My mother was then born in the UK from Jamaican parents, and then I was born after. So second generation, if that makes sense, Jamaican, born in the UK, born in they would call it, some would call it the hood, some would call it more poverty-driven area, council estate. So I grew up in a place where it was overcrowded with living. It was different, but it also taught me a lot. And I think without growing up there and the things that I went through to get to where I am today, I think I would have never got here. I'm not saying never, it would just be a different path. And it's hard to get to this path when you haven't learned the values that you've learned from nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know you didn't finish school. How did that impact your life?
I think not finishing school made me more hungry. It gave me something it gave me a determination that I didn't know what the future held. And I wasn't going to let school or a system determine what I was going to do. I remember when I got kicked out of school, my mom acted like it was the last thing in the world that she would ever imagine. And she gave me this look like, what you're going to do now? Like, what now? Like you effed up, what you going to do? And like everything I taught you to do, this wasn't a part of it. And I kind of had to, I remember a moment, and if there's a movie that's written, which there probably will be, or there might be in the works, if there's a movie that's written about my life, you just reminded me of something just now. There's a Biggie Smalls song. I'll find it. There's a Notorious B.I.G. song I remember riding my bike after, pissed because my mom was pissed at me. And I'm riding my bike and listening to this Biggie. I don't know if I was going to the store or something after she flipped out because it was a weekend. They got rid of me from the school on Friday, so I couldn't take the tests the next week on the Monday, Tuesday. So it was I wouldn't say it was conspired, but like, let's say I thought I was always smart and the instigator at school. This time they instigated me out the school without taking the test, without finishing school at the last minute after doing all of the coursework. So it kind of hit me in a certain way. And I felt like it was a lesson in life, a lesson for me to like learn along the way. And it wasn't until further in life that I learned that who I was then helped later on, if that makes sense. And I know you never understand not finishing school and how is that going to help you in the future. And I do not permit no one that's listening to not finish school. That's not the way. Everyone has a different path. But I'm just saying, today, we're not even in school. Kids are not in school. They're quarantining at home. So how are they learning? Are they using the internet that me and you are using to talk from South Africa to USA? Like, how are the kids learning today? We have powerful tools that can teach the kids today more than we learned anything yesterday. So does that mean that the old rules are out the window? Some of the biggest billionaires and millionaires today didn't finish school. Richard Branson. I can name you many. I'm sure you can name me another 5. Yeah. Some of them didn't finish school and are some of the most successful people today. So for me, I believe in experience and trial and error. You know, like school was terrible. Like not finishing school was a bad thing, but I made it make good. I turned a bad thing into from that some people would call negative into a positive.
And I was the exact same. I didn't get kicked out of school, but I didn't go to university. And that's why we both have that desire.
Yeah, I don't know what college or university looks like. I've never experienced one day. My first time at a university was taking Post Malone to perform and looking around and like, okay, this is what a university's like. When I was already 30, in my 30s. So, it was just very surprising and it was just different once I experienced the outside of it,
So you bought a home and an Audi TT by the age of 21 years old. What did you do to achieve that little bit of success? And I say little bit of success because that was just the foundation for you.
That's a great question. That's a really good question. So let's just say I used the skills that I learned in the place that you asked me with the foundation. So coming from a place where you have nothing, you start thinking to yourself, how do you make something from nothing, if that makes sense? And I happened to just pick up the best and the worst things. And maybe when I was like 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, that was probably where I picked up the skill that when I was 18, 19 years old could teach me to be smarter. There was just different things that I picked up growing up inside these kind of an area where I knew the people who I didn't want to be. And I knew the people that I saw that was positive and that was doing positive stuff. And then I knew the other side where people was on the street and they would hustle and just do certain things to survive. And I think I found a happy medium, if that makes sense. Like, crazy, believe it or not, today it might be the most legal thing in the world that everyone's now trying to make legal and decriminalize. So I call it, what's the word that they do in the air? Slip me. Gentrification. Let's say gentrification. Today they have gentrified weed and cannabis. But believe it or not, when I was 13 years old, I'm going to tell you something that the whole world probably doesn't even know. At 13 years old, that was the first thing I learned. That was my first ever hustle, selling joints at school. At 12, 13 years old, I used to sell them for £1.50. Anyone that's watching this back home or anyone that knows me from school from back in the day, they'll tell you, like, when Dre was 12, 13 years old, this guy was selling joints at school. Everyone was smoking. It wasn't like, oh, this guy's doing the most crazy thing. Everyone's smoking at school. You're in the UK. It's 12, 13 years old. I think this is going to be like where I've never told no one in the world this. I don't even know why I'm saying this now, Sashin, but you asked a good question. I think that's the first time in my life where any kind of hustle kicked in. Your parents, your family give you school money to go to school. we would all go to school. This hit me. We would all go to school, but then everyone smoked. So at lunchtime or something, most of the kids was going trying to cop or to buy weed. I didn't like, I smoked. I just started smoking maybe at a younger age. And this was like the second school I was in. And I didn't like the notion that the lunch money that we was going to get lunch with would be buying smoke. This was my first lesson in life. I didn't do it. Don't ask me how. Oh, I can't tell you how. I had an uncle. I had an uncle that was one of the big tree guys in town or whatever. And my cousin used to take little pieces of weed, like when you're young, out of my uncle's stash. So anyway, my uncle started finding out. I was like, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Anyway, cut a long story short, I started selling joints for £1.50 for which is the equivalent of about $2.50 in America. And I worked out that I didn't work it out. I just knew that I wasn't going to be the kids that was missing lunch to smoke. I was the kid that ended up selling them the smoke and going out of school, going to McDonald's or going and having a good lunch and coming back to school like nothing. While most of them was worried about smoking, I was the one who was thinking, no, I'm not going to be the one who's going and getting my money's gone. I was the one who was thinking, let me be the guy that they get it from. And then so on, I would pocket the money and I would be able to move on. I don't know. I just learned profit and loss at 12, 13 years old. I don't want to make the story.
You sold weed. I sold chocolate fudge when I was 12 or 13. So that's where the entrepreneurial journey.
I'm proud of it. I'm not saying it like I'm proud of it. Yeah. I'm not saying it to boast. I've never mentioned it before, but.
And I appreciate the honesty.
Growing up in the inner city at 12, 13 years old, and you smoke, you're going to either be a smoker or you're going to be, it's a supply and demand game. No matter what I learned at 12, 13 years old, I probably learned at an early age more than others, but that today I define as what was my early age of learning supply and demand. And it didn't matter whether you were selling chocolate fudge because you knew that people wanted chocolate and kids was going to eat chocolate and addicted to sugar, which is the biggest drug in the world because I haven't had sugar for 9 weeks now. And my life has changed. And we could talk about selling weed for $1.50, for $2.50 at school at 13 years old. Or we could talk about the big companies that are promoting sugar from the minute you get into kindergarten and you're in school looking at posters and they're promoting sugar. So, who's the winner?
Yeah. So, Dre, you eventually made the decision to jump on a flight and move from London to New York. And I can truly relate because at 21 years old, I made that move to move out of my comfort zone, which was my home city, Durban, South Africa, into my growth zone, which became Cape Town. Why did you make that move? Because you already had a bit of success. And how vital is it for people to get out of their comfort zone rather than entertaining it?
It's very vital. It's very vital. I don't think I know that comfort zone that I came out of changed everything. People feel like, okay, but Dre, you was doing okay at the time. And you'd been, of course, we all have ups and downs, but people felt like I was doing okay at the time and I didn't need to leave. People was like, I don't know if you want to say this or if someone would say this in the Jamaican community or come from maybe Toronto, Canada, London, somewhere who knows. Someone would say like, why are you leaving? You're the big man. You're a big man out here. Why would you leave this? My eyes saw more than what I felt like London had to offer me, if that makes sense. Like what the UK had to offer was good for the UK. And I felt like, yes, it's good for the world. But I felt like I had something different more to offer the world. So that's why when people started calling me London Dre, and you know Dre London, that's how the name came about. French Montana, other people was just like every minute, like, you know, London Dre London, like, and I just put it together, put the city on my back, as people say in America, like you love your city so much, you put it on your back. So it's not like I don't love my city, but I just felt like I wanted to see more in the world, like you moving from one part to the next. And you can't, sometimes you're in a place in the world, or you might be in a place in the world where you might want to do fashion. You might be in a small town in the country where fashionism wasn't special there. So you have to go to where it is. You got to go and seek. You got to come out of your comfort zone and go and fly, if that makes sense. You can't stay around a comfort zone and feel like you're going to make it because everyone around you, you might be more faster thinker, or you might think in a certain way different. But how are you going to be pushed around people that's not doing the same thing? You're not learning something new every day. It doesn't matter. You have to come out of your comfort zone. You have to be vulnerable. From what I've realized is if you're vulnerable and your back's against the wall, or you don't have a comfort zone, you don't have family and parents. I'm not saying that you should just go out and do something where what's crazy, but if you're not in your comfort zone, it pushes your back against the wall. And they say pressure busts pipes. So if the pressure bursts pipes, that's where you get to that edge. That's where you get to that point to me where it's like, okay. And then people thought I was going to fail. There was times where it came to the edge where people thought I was going to leave America, and they're telling me like, bro, you can come back. Like things ain't going the way you want it to right now. You can come back. You can actually go back and like you can continue to build. Remember, America's not your home. I had English people, friends, close people that I know for years tell me, bro, America's not your home. You don't have to rough it out and be going through those things you're going through. Like when money came down and the living, I went to America with maybe $100,000, $100-something from flipping houses and stuff in the UK. So that may be of what, 150 US. But you live a couple of years in the US where no money's coming in, and that all changes. That changes to where you've just been living. And then remember, you're networking too. So you're up late nights, up early mornings, trying to work, like doing the same thing that I would be doing, non-stop 20-hour grinds. And the money's going to go down eventually. So when it does, what happens next? You have to go back to the same skill or have the same skills that you had at some point in your life to be resilient, to kick yourself off that wall. So yeah, I do feel like when you travel to your destination, when you travel to attack, when you travel for what's in this brain that's just not the unknown, that you know, like, okay, these parts are the center parts of the world for whatever I'm doing. Doesn't matter if it's music, whatever business it is. I'm like, New York could be a hub for another place. It doesn't matter what it is in the world that you're doing. There's places that you know are the hub or that specialize in these things. And if you know that I go to this city, it's where a hub for the creative parts of whatever the business is or that I need to be getting into, I'm going to go and get it. I'm not going to sit around and wait. It's going to be something that I'm going to make sure I go and get.
So what was your defining moment and the breakthrough you had to become a successful manager in the music industry and in the entrepreneurial space?
It's a good question. Probably the moment you just mentioned. The moment where you know you're on your own. It's crazy when you're on your own. My defining moment, okay, it just came through to me. One of my defining moments was sleeping on the couch. That was one of my breakthrough defining moments. Having it, getting here, having my own apartment, doing this, the same thing I was telling you, and then everything wearing down, and then spending 10 days on the couch. That was probably my defining moment. The same time when everyone was saying, like, bro, you could go home. Like, yo, go back to the UK. It wasn't like you were a waste man in the UK. You had things going on. You could go back here, hustle it up, get back things together, you know. And I was just like at this crossroad, and I wasn't going to quit. Like that couch was probably the defining moment. That was a point where everyone was around me at that time. Like, because everyone around me, no one was doing what I'm doing now. No one was like, I can't even say I had the best musicians or the best managers or people in the music business around me at the time. It was just a time where things went down, and I knew people in the business, but what am I going to do? Tell them I'm low? Moved to America and now I'm broke, or now things is low and I don't know what's happening next. Bro, I had to figure out from a couch. And that was probably the most defining moment for me, figuring it out from a couch. So when you're all down, when all your chips is against the wall, when everything you think is against you, meditate, use your brain, because that's what you have. The same thing where you were before, the same place where you wasn't out on the street, you was like that. I felt like it was close to. And I think that was my defining moment where like I had to give that kick off the wall. You know, when you're doing athletics and they shoot the gun, on your marks, get set, and you have to kick off of that. I don't know what the word is, the stumps or whatever you call it. You have to give that real push where you're a swimmer, you're kicking off of that wall to go into your Michael Phelps mode. That's where I was. I was at that wall and saying, I'm not going to sink. I'm going to swim. I'm going to float.
And then I believe it was 2016-17 that you discovered Post Malone.
2014.
How did you discover Post?
So I was going back and forth from LA, and I wanted to see. I knew everyone was going to LA for the Grammy, so I thought, okay, back and forth to LA. I fell out of love with the business of music. I loved music, but fell out of love with the business. And I started learning, developing women's shoes. I started to develop a women's shoe line that I have called Dre London that I'm launching very soon. And I felt like the passion that I fell out of with the business, I put all that passion into something that I knew I always loved, women in nice shoes. I had a class where maybe you called it the London thing in me, the London swag, the London style, the class. I don't know. I just always liked women in nice, classy shoes. So I began learning and developing that online. So by the time I met Post in 2014, my mind was clear. I wasn't thinking of going back into the music business. I wasn't looking for something. It just happened. Someone brought me to a house in Encino, California. And there was video gamers, producers, one or two artists, but like no one stuck out to me like Post did. And immediately we just hit it off and got along straight away. And I wouldn't say right away I was managing him, but I knew I wanted to manage. I knew whatever I did with him, I wanted the world to know who he was. It didn't matter. And I felt like all the experience I had gone through before with another artist that I moved to America with and learned and hustled and went through all the hustle and bustle, I felt like it was for that moment. That when I met him, I wanted to take him to the next level. And after 6 months, it didn't take straight away. After 6 months of building up trust and him getting to know who I was, that's when he decided, okay, I'm going to listen to you and have you manage me and let's see what we do.
And people need to definitely understand when your preparation meets with God's timing, the higher power, that moment is game over. That past artist prepared you for Post.
And you don't even know that you're being prepared for that. And that's when people say, oh, Dre, luck. Do you know how it is? Like you had this lucky streak and I was in a text. You had this lucky streak and like, damn, you were so lucky. Or was you in the right place? And no, I say that like, what you just saw, what you said, the other artists, the experience and the things I was going through before was me being prepared and without even knowing that I was being preparation. And then preparation was me being also ready for it. So you have to be prepared for opportunity. And then in the middle, I think is this word that people call luck. But I call it you make your own luck. You build your own luck. It's not you're lucky. Yeah, some things happen for you with the energy and things go your way. You have one day where something went better than the other day. But when opportunity meets preparation in the middle, people call it luck, but it's not. It's game over. It's exactly what you call it. It's the energy of the higher being, knowing that you was mentally prepared for this opportunity that by the time it came there, your preparation had you sniff it out. Because there's opportunities that fly by us every day. And if you don't pick up the little pin that leads to the needle, that gets the thread to make it continue, to make stitching with cotton, to turn it into a t-shirt, every single thing has a building block. Even the needle and the thread that makes the t-shirt, whether you're doing it by hand or you're stitching it with someone in China or in India, everything has a process. Building a house has a process. Every single thing in our world has a process. So how are you expecting to wake up tomorrow and it just happen for you? You got to build them small steps that take you to the next level, them small steps that actually guide you to get somewhere. And that's the only way every day that you're going to build to even seeing your dreams come true. This morning I woke up and I said something so crazy. And it was just like, it was something I woke up with, bro. Like, it wasn't like I just woke up and came out with this in my mind. And it wasn't like, I don't know what, I do know what I was thinking, and maybe I can't share, but I woke up this morning and it was the first thing on my mind. And I was just like, this is really special. This sport is really, really special. Sleeping don't get you closer to your dreams. I was sleeping went to sleep around 5 a.m. this morning, 5:30, and I was up at 10:30, maybe 10 o'clock. And that's like 19 hours sleep, maybe. And that's my normal routine. Like, I wake up and I'm like, bang. Like, I have my house getting demoed right now, where I've just demoed the whole house because I don't buy anything. I don't buy anything that doesn't have value in it, as in equity. I don't buy or get something, even when I am today. I'm not one of these people that's going to be like, okay, I want to get my house now. Now I've worked hard and I've done this. I want to get a house now. No, I'll buy a house on purpose. I'll buy a house that I know when you go in, no one's going to look at this and think it's desirable. Like, this house looks old. I'll visualize the future by looking at that same house and put it to the same thing with the needle and the thread in the building, because I can see a gem in something that others don't see. Also, why would I put my money into something that I can't already see growth? I think about selling something when I'm buying it. So if you buy something with the intention of selling it, or the intention of down the line, is this desirable? Can I make this desirable for the person who comes in after? The presentation, the perspective that they're going to look at when they walk into a room. It doesn't matter what it is. Are they going to now buy this and they're going to look at it from what they see after. So every single thing that I do, I build. And bro, I literally right now wake up in my office. I have a whole compound, and I've turned my office into, at night, I can turn it into bedtime, sleep, wake up, I'm in the office. So when I wake up at 10 o'clock, my staff is already here. And this has been the whole quarantine. I changed my life before that. We was on tour, and I said, okay, you know what? No one knew Corona, quarantine, this, that. We heard little things. It was like January, February. I started demolishing my house. We're on tour. It's okay. I'm going to be back and forth when I come here. I'll spend a night or two at the office, then be back on the road. Life gave us a twist in the curve. So what was I going to do? Go and look for a house to rent or find somewhere else? I said, no, this is a time where we're going through stuff that I've never seen before. The office has just been finished, the office compound. The studio's nearly done. We have 2 or 3 office rooms nearly finished. What am I going to do? I'm going to rough it out. Where even my assistant looked at me like, sometimes she thinks I'm crazy. She looked at me like, for real? It was the same time like when she met me. I already was doing okay, but I chose to stay in the 2-bedroom cottage, old cottage that I bought. I stayed in this house until it was really time and all the permits came and I had to move out. And then went into another house and then demoed the house and built it up. Like, I think I've had my assistant with me 3 years, and it's only after I finish this house that I'm going to finally be stable. And that means because, bro, everywhere I bought to move into, and this is me giving you a little private insight to my mind, just my personal life and how I think. Everywhere I've moved, it's had to be a project to fix it or to do something or to build the equity in it. That I had to move on to the next house till that's done or till I'm settled to find a comfort zone. Because coming from where I come from, I guess I call it scared. I'm scared. I don't never want to go back to where I come from. I have this thing inside me that doesn't want to fail. Like, my thought or what keeps me going today is my passion for not wanting to fail. I never want to look back and think you came this far and now you failed, or you've heard all these stories. So I can't stop running. I'm not going to stop.
I can relate.
You ever seen a marathon runner? Like, they don't stop. They pick up that steady pace. Like Michael Johnson, how he used to jog with his back straight, and they just keep moving.
Don't
Yo,
stop.
it doesn't matter what you go through. You might feel this little ache, this little pain, 1 or 2 minutes throughout it, or at the start or at the end. But if you keep jogging and stay consistent, it's going to come.
Yeah.
No matter what it is you're doing or going through, it's going to come.
And in one sentence, summarizing what you just said, seeing the invisible to doing the impossible. In one sentence.
So true. Seeing the invisible to doing the impossible is definitely how I would break this out. There's people who come from where I come from in London who look at me like, my cousin said it to me a couple of months ago during this. He sent me an old school song we grew up on. It touched. And then I think 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm working my stuff. Yes, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning was free, maybe 2 or 3 of us, my graphic designer, my director, we were out working on something. And this song hit me. And he said, wow. And I remember I sipped tequila. I started drinking tequila at 4 or 5 in the morning when I knew I was about to go to sleep. And the song, Pick Up the Pieces, it really hit me. It wasn't the words in the song. It was like just how I grown up, where I grown up. My cousin texts me on WhatsApp from the UK, says, do you remember this song? I call him back. And then we have this conversation for 5-10 minutes. And he tells me that he was listening to this song the other day and it just made him think of me. And shout out to my cousin Trev. Like, it hit me then when he said, bro, like most wouldn't even believe if I even told them. Sometimes I look at what you're doing or where you're going or what's going on in your life, and I can't even imagine to believe, or most wouldn't believe if I told them the story, where you're coming from or what you did and what you're doing now. Most people wouldn't believe me. Do you know that? And I'm looking at the phone and like, bro, like a little water, like it filled my eye, like one of my eyes, like, and I had to, because I just had flashbacks of different things. I'm talking about when my cousin was 12 years old, couldn't get in trouble with the law. He was learning the hustle. His big cousin, who was awful, I needed a break to go and do something else. He was the only person that I could trust at 12 years old to run my business in the hood. You take it whichever way you want to take it, or think of it whichever way you want to think it. He's 12, I may be 19. And that was the only time I might have had a little life to go somewhere else. So I had like, oh, my friends was going out of town or we was going to go and do something. Damn, who was going to take care of my business? My cousin. And this guy, my cousin Trev, he reminded me years later through a song. It just hit me and I had a tear. No, a tear didn't drop. It just, a lot of flashes went through my life. And he said to me, most would not believe what you had been through. And it was then that I was explaining to him that now I'm starting to jot down notes before forgetting some of the things that I've been through. And now I have people coming and like friends from the UK and people out here putting it all together with different pieces of my life. Because whether it's a book, a movie, or however we put it together, it definitely, like you said in the beginning, is a story that needs to be told. But because I'm not one of those people that go out there to be seeking, hey, it's me. Yeah. Hey, I did this. I did that. Today, people say that I'm not just a manager. I'm one of the biggest entrepreneurs that's starting brand and like a part of pop culture that's switched pop culture for our time and done all these amazing things for hip hop and pop culture with how I've shifted it and what I'm doing with Post Malone, Tyga, my new artist Tyler Yahweh, and different things what I'm doing with launching a new wine like Maison No.9 that I launched with Post, when people was telling me that it was crazy and what I was thinking was insane to go into a wine business. Me and you discussed it when I was in South Africa. Yeah. And I told you I was going into wine. And you knew before everyone else. And now the world is, not the world, just even people that was close was trying to put bad words or maybe say things that didn't interpret the right energy towards moving forward into where I was thinking about going into wine and Post thinking about going into wine. And we went into it full steam ahead without even worried what anyone thought. And it was funny because a couple of weeks ago, I was at Post's house and he was like laughing to himself, like Dre, ain't it crazy how like everyone, he didn't say people doubted us, but I was like, we went against the grain. And it's so funny that there was people that thought that we shouldn't be in this space or doing this. And now we got the middle finger to them saying, haha, because in the first 2 days of pre-sale, he sold 50,000 bottles of wine. And now almost the first, I don't want to say how many cases, but like record-breaking cases. If we can do this before the end of the year, which is looking well on course. We're going to have the fastest growing wine in the USA. Faster than Whispering Angel, who sold for over 500 million, has been around for so many years. When I looked the other day and I saw Whispering Angel had 70,000, I don't even think 70, had 65,000 followers. And in 2-3 weeks, our social media account shot past and doubled what they had in that short space of time. And I know, okay, Whispering Angel doesn't have an artist or something attached or a celeb or anything. And it's not about having something attached. It didn't have, for me, the story. So where me and Post was going to south of France, and we built this story on our love for wine and growing and meeting the owners, the vineyard, this, that. It wasn't just something that you see in the store in front of your face. So people today are now grooming to different businesses. They warm to the people. They want to know the story. They want to know the background. Everyone wants to feel like they grow, even with a brand today. And social media has done that. So it helped break that wine and make it now becoming the fastest growing wine in America at the moment. And that's another triumph of the same thing you're saying, like tunnel vision. When you see something, just, I'm not saying don't take the advice. Yeah. Someone could give you advice. But then I start looking at who's giving me the advice. Have you did this before? Have you been there? Are you talking from experience? Or are you just talking from what you see other people do? I'm not saying you mustn't take their advice, but what was good for one man doesn't mean it was good for me. What's good for the goose doesn't mean it's good for the gander. So you got to know where you take your advice and where you find perseverance from in times of need or times of trying to get to your goals.
Hey, I want you to take a quick split second of your time. All I want you to do is hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. I want to update you when I have a next iconic guest on my show. Stay in student mode.
Hey guys, it's Dre London. You're tuned into the Millionaire Student Show with Sashin.
So I know you had to come up with $25,000 in 30 minutes to save Post Malone's video shoot, which definitely saved the career and took him to where he is right now. How did you get yourself into that situation?
That's crazy. I was asked this question the other day. So, like, it's so crazy to, like, come across that question again. It was just one of those moments, one of those crossroads where I didn't know at the time that I was in the situation I was, where I had to shoot a music video for Post. It turned out that in the future, this music video turned out to be his first top 10. At the time, I wasn't thinking about that. His album had just came out 2016, December 9th, and it was now January. Everyone in the music business is looking around left and right like the brand new Happy New Year. That was all over. All the cheers was over. Now, the album that we put out in December was gone. In my head, everyone who had any hype or any marketing around Post's album that came out before Christmas, it was now January, the New Year. And how was I going to get people to still try and learn more about Post? His first album just came out, Stony. And like, how was I going to make sure that people knew who he was? Anyway, on this album, we had a song called Congratulations that was with him and Quavo and Metro Boomin. So my director, James, at the time, like my director, James Defina, he had recorded some of us making the song, like during the studio session, making the song. And then after that, I remember me and him discussing at my house, doing a video during the holiday or over the January period. And I remember just not the label, everyone wasn't ready for the year starting. But guess who was? Dre and Posty. I pressured him and told Posty we're shooting a video, we're doing it ourselves. At this time, Post isn't questioning. I already shot White Iverson in 2015 on my own. So what I say, like, or he says, like, let's go. He's like, okay. So I remember getting in the studio and we put a storyline together of celebration, showed the song being made. I remember going back and forth during the edits. There was one piece missing from this video that didn't make it right. And then James came up and said, oh yeah, I got the footage when we made the song. I added that to what we did in the studio. I had to spend my own money. I'm not saying that, like, you should do that, but there was a moment in time where I could wait on people to make decisions at a big corporation that I was partners with, or I could go into firsthand and doing it myself. And I went and took matters into my own hands. I went to the bank that morning, I remember, and got the deposit and stuff for all the workers that was working that day to pay to James. We both went to the bank that morning. Then the day was going on. I had already flown out Quavo to come and do do his part in the video as he was on the song. And Quavo then let me know that he hadn't been paid like what you call a clearance, or you could like a clearance fee, or he hadn't been paid from the label before that or anything. So then now he's already here and it's approaching 4:30. 4:30 in the afternoon is late for a video. That's already half the day gone. And he's telling me that if he doesn't get at least his clearance, 25 grand that he should have had, this is in 2016, he's not doing the video. 2017. I'm like, what at the beginning of the year. So I then said to myself, I had to figure out and make a decision. What was I going to do next? Bro, I had 30 minutes at the time to get what I needed to pull this off. And I made sure that I found it to pull it off. Even told him to come, that I had it when the move wasn't even totally finished, from getting the courier to come here, to go to a bank, to get someone else to come and bring me another 5 to put on top of it. Because at this point, it wasn't like, hey, give me a check. No. I already wasn't paid, but we didn't know this at the time. So we came to this crossroad where everyone's sitting down waiting at the video, and he didn't pull up yet. And when he pulled up, he was expected to be paid for what he hadn't been paid for in the past. So I just had to pull out a miracle, and I pulled out a miracle in the last 25th hour, if you want to call it, and pulled it off. And that turned out to be another turning point, as you just said. It was a moment where we didn't know where that was going to take us, but that ended up being his first top 10. Having that video and people seeing that celebration, having another piece of content and another to add to it, reminded people that, oh yeah, Post Malone. Because it was at the end of January 23rd, I think we put the video out, 23rd or 24th. And it woke up people to the year like, oh, remember this guy? Yeah, remember him? Like, and I guess it alerted things and lined up with the energy at the right timing, like you said earlier. And then the song grew and began to grow into graduation time. So by the time the song was big in America, people were graduating, and it started taking another lift again because people were just singing congratulations. And then people were singing congratulations for something else. One thing hit another with the metrics and
Game over.
Radio and the energy, and it became his first top 10. And I feel like because of that top 10, when we came out with Rockstar, it led him to get his first number 1 because awareness. We kept on people getting aware, kept them being aware, kept persevering. I think if I sat back and didn't do that at that time, who knows what would have happened? Who knows if he would have break or what the story would have been. But for me, that was a major turning point. That was me pushing. And me, like, I can't say that it was someone else. Yeah, the only other person that was pushing was Post. But other than that, who took the initiative to get up and say, I'm going to pay for this and get this done and not wait on anybody?
Dre, in the beginning, you are someone that does not get as much appreciation because I watched you. I watched you one day after I watched Meek Mill backstage. So I watched 2 teams, 2 different sides. I watched everything. I'm not picking on any sides, but I'm saying you get world class and then you get above world class.
And you saw something. I don't know. You saw something that.
You remember I sent you a message?
Yes. After. That's what I knew that you pay attention to a lot. And you was just saying the way you move and the way you carry yourself and the way I envision where you're going. There's no stopping it. It's just different. And I don't want to say that I pride myself on any different than anyone else. I just try to move a certain way, bro. I just try to persevere things in a certain way. And thank you for noticing that in a different way, in a different class. I don't see myself as, oh, he's just a music manager. Or yeah, he just discovered Post Malone. Or he just manages Tyga. Or no, bro. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't matter where you came from. It matters where you're going. You could have thought I was just a guy in Brixton, South London back in the day. I knew I wasn't. I knew I was bigger than that. I knew I had bigger goals. So, and now I'm doing some of the biggest deals and coming up with my creative ideas, and now making some of the biggest companies in the world want to do business with me. I don't want to mention it. I have some of the biggest companies in the world now wanting to get what's here. Come, like this guy that was in Brixton, South London, many miles away, now has all these big companies that's from the S&P 500 now asking me and wanting my advice to moving forward in terms of how do we mix culture and brands? How do we today nurture the missing pieces that are there that you have when it comes to do with what's happening in culture today? Dre, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I can't even tell someone what I think today because they'll use it.
Yeah.
And if I'm not getting paid for that, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't make sense. The game's to be sold, not told.
Dre, for those who are in the music world, when does an artist need a manager? And for those who are a startup entrepreneur, when does an entrepreneur need that mentor, someone who can represent them?
Wow, that's a great question. For an entrepreneur, when does someone need... There's not a time when does someone need a mentor, but I feel like a mentor comes when you've got to a certain level. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. A mentor comes once you get to a foothold or a part where the mentor has paid attention to you. I think that's when you're ready for the mentor. It's the same thing with music. If you're in the studio or you're doing something and you're making music and you're doing tech and you're making an invention or you do something, there's them 10,000 hours. Let's just say that. For me, spend 10,000 hours. I don't care what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You might think you're great at it. You might think, oh, but I can have a breakthrough and I could do... Bro, it's normally most people who are good at whatever they do or became the greatest at what they do or became one of the greats, they spent 10,000 hours.
Mastery.
Getting to know what it is they're doing. Inside out, failing, winning, having days where they felt like they was on to winning, where they made it. And then the next day was failure. And they thought, I thought I did it. Like, doesn't matter what it is, bro. Like, that is what it takes for me. There's many different avenues and many different ways you can look at it, but that is one of the big notions of not quitting.
So from the outside looking into the music industry, I mean, it's flashy, there's fortune, fame, all the great things. And that could pass for every industry in the world. But looking in from the inside, looking out, I believe, every industry wants to gain. It's cutthroat, there's friends and enemies, as well as a lot of life lessons and learning lessons. Without giving away any names, what was one incident that mentally toughened you up and said, Dre, welcome to the Big Boys League?
The beginning of Post's career, when all the sharks came out, when White Iverson started making it big and growing and getting huge, and me and Post was just looking at it like we're friends, and like Dre's got my back, I got his back, and we're good. The times when these snakes and sharks started coming around, when I felt like I was uncomfortable leaving my artist in the studio without all these people coming around him and getting into his ears. That's when the time when I was like, all of a sudden, every single thing that I learned from the street, every single thing was hitting me back in my face, but in a different way. These guys was coming in suits. They wasn't the guys that was back in the streets in South London or in the streets in New York and the hustle and bustle I had to go through. These guys came smarter. They smiled in my face. They had suits on like you. I called them briefcase killers. They came around whispering nasty things or saying things in my artist's ear, coming out with all these different things like where if he wasn't strong or if we wasn't strong, we didn't have a strong bond, I felt like that could have been a moment of fold. There's times when I had to put up with things, keep my head down, keep working. There's times when I felt like I had to work harder than everyone else around that was a shark trying to take my artists away from me. I felt like exactly some of the things that I hear going on today with Black Lives Matter and just different things. Like I just felt so much going on that maybe at that time I couldn't have spoke about it in this way, or it might not have been taken in the same way of how I'm explaining it today, but I felt like I had to work harder than everyone else to prove myself. And I did that. So like, I felt like I had to like play the fly on the wall sometimes. And then today be the flyest of them all. Like Kanye said one time in the song. I really felt that like, because I get it when you have to play the fly on the wall. I get it when you have to zip your mouth, keep your head down, keep working. Because, bro, people don't believe. No one believed in Dre London. No one believed in Dre Vision. They were trying to fight and take me down. They were trying to split what they could so they could get their own self-gains. But no, I kept my head down and kept it together. If I failed, I felt like I would have failed for half of the black guys in this world that want to do the same thing or that look up to me today. Even today, why do I not stop? Why do I keep going? Why do I keep trying to grind to the next level? Bro, I had a tear one time because there's kids that write to me and inspire. They look up to what I do or where I've come from, and they believe in the same thing. So if I fell or I gave up to these sharks or gave up to these snakes or didn't wisen up and get smarter, how could another black kid from another inner city somewhere in this world get to where he wants to get to from looking at me who failed? Or I might have failed and people looked around or another guy say, hey, there it is. I mean, we see the story before, you know, the glitz, the glamour, this, that, came around, he announced to handle it. Oh, he got too big for him. He didn't know. Oh, welcome to the game. Bro, that was my welcome to the game. My welcome to the game was battling with some of these rich guys who's already been in the game, some of these old school guys that's already had their foothold in the game. I came in the game having to fight their kids. And imagine that. Some might like me saying it, some might not. You touched a good point. It hit a nerve. And I'm going to tell you like it is. I came into this game having to fight some of the biggest guys in the music business. That was my entrance. Where was the time when I had to toughen up? When I was dealing with some of these rich millionaires' sons and people who was trying to take away my gold, what I found, what I built, right under my face and smile at me. That's when I knew it was time. Okay, you hit the big leagues, son. Get up, wake up. But they didn't know where I come from. They didn't know what I'd seen. I seen tougher days. There's times when I've had Post's lawyer or someone call me and complaining about something or something's happened and they're making it seem like the worst thing in the world has happened. You know what I tell them? Bro, I've been through tougher things when I was in Brixton, South London on the streets. I was worried when I had to look left and right at blue and red lights coming down the street, ducking, looking worried at something else because of what I was around. This isn't a problem. With these problems that these people try and make today isn't a problem. A problem is growing up and not having no money. A problem is growing up and coming from nowhere and not knowing where your next meal is. That's what a problem is. So when I had to face something huge, that's what I first said, okay, I'm here. This is it. This is what my experience taught me. You guys all want to come and outdo what I've grown and take away what I've built. And this is going to happen. This is not just the music business. Yeah, it's the music business. It's anything you do. It's anything you build. These sharks are going to come out from the ground you walk on, from beneath where you are, and try and eat and take what your brain came out with. And I'm just here telling you, whether they're listening, whether you're listening, whether you ask or you, Sashin, doesn't matter. You don't let no one take what you built and believe in from here. Don't let no one. Everything might have a price, it might not. It all comes from here. When it starts from here and it builds and it grows into something, you control it from here. Don't let no one else control your destiny or dream.
And for every level, there's another devil to it. There's another person waiting to take it away from you, man.
Every level, there's another devil.
So, Dre, it's so imperative to consciously resell ourselves daily on what we do for a living, and, you know, as well as reselling those who we want to go into business with us. This year, you signed a major deal with Tyga, being his manager. Congratulations on that, but that was definitely a calculated move. I saw that coming months before you actually announced it. But what was that process? What was your vision on selling Tyga for you to represent him?
Like, what do you mean? What was my reason for wanting to represent?
How did you make him believe in you as opposed to anyone else out there? Because he was already in a deal. He was already making the money.
Management, yeah, I get it. Like, bro, we were already friends for like 2 years. So the Tyga situation is totally different because we already knew each other. Shout out to my boy Sujin, who introduced us and reminded us a couple of years later. Me and Tyga's somewhere, we're getting a little, I don't know, we were somewhere, and the guy who introduced us was like, hey, remember me? He was like, oh, you forgot? And we became such close friends that we didn't even remember a couple of years later that this was the guy who introduced us. And like, I think that's what happened. Like, I didn't turn around and say, oh, it's the same thing in a different story with Post. Like, I didn't turn around and say, oh, my goal is I want from him. I want to take. I want something that he has. I think we just grew a good friendship that got to a level to where, like, I'm advising him or I was giving him advice without managing him. And I don't know how it happened. Just one day I turned around and he said at the same kind of time, it was like, yo, as I'm telling him, like, yo, I think you need me to manage you, or I should manage you. And he's turned around the same kind of time and was like, yo, we should think about it. Like, let's see what happens. Like, and it just was a natural growth of friendship that he knew I wanted the best for him and I do want the best for him. And that I just saw things happening that I felt like around him, he could have someone better who really cares. And I think that that's what he saw in me, that he looked at my relationship and saw that, like, Dre actually really cares about the artist. He saw how I fight for my artists and how I fight for what's right. I fight for stuff with Post. He saw, like, just a lot of things that I fight for. And he saw that this guy doesn't just take no bullshit. It's not about, like, jumping up and screaming. I'm talking about in general. I fight for what I believe is right, and I fight for my client. And, like, I eat and sleep it. So if you're someone who actually sees it, or you get a chance to actually see the real me in that moment, it will warm to you if you're a real person. Like he said the other day, not everyone understands Dre. Like, not everyone understands Dre's passion. He literally said it, like, some people wouldn't even understand Dre's moves or how he moves or why he does things the way he does. And they're not supposed to. But Tyga did. And at the end of the day, that's what makes that magic. He understood my passion and how my brain works. And if you, same way posted, some people didn't in the beginning. They thought, like, what's wrong with this guy? Or he's this, or he likes this, or he likes to be looking good, or anything. Like, no, bro, like, don't believe in the smoke and mirrors, because it might catch you with the smoke and mirrors. And while you're looking in the mirror, the smoke's gone. I disappeared and I kept climbing while you're still staying there looking in the mirror. You feel me? So the world is made up of different things, the way it comes together to climb and make the smoke rise. And me and him came together in the most unique, genuine way, not wanting anything from each other. And that passion for him wanting to continue his success and my passion for wanting the best came together genuinely. And it didn't matter anything else. Nothing else mattered. We genuinely just wanted the best. Like, he genuinely wants the best for me. Like, I genuinely want the best for him. And I advise him and he advises me on different things he might see, or I advise him on different things that I might see. And it just, over the years, it grew and taking it to the next level. Now, like, we're releasing some of the biggest records. And now, like, they're saying I have the most elitist management machine and business in the game at the moment. I mean, that's what they say. To me, I'm just getting started.
Love it. So you've been in the presence of so many impactful souls with regards to wisdom, wealth, and experience. I know you, bumped into Richard Branson. How did that influence and shift? How did that shift you?
I wonder if he even remembers that. Like, that's so crazy, because that was like a guy called Chip Quigley, who I met in New York. Through someone's dad years later happened to be one of my biggest lessons that I learned in the music business. And I met him at Chip Quigley had an event in New York. And this guy used to put on events and, like, did big production stuff. And there was an event. I can't remember what it was. It was probably a brand or something. There was all these different people that was in town and, like, that was there for this event. And Richard Branson happened to be one of them. It was one of my first events in New York or something. I thought, I'm born in London. I looked up and saw this guy all the time in the UK. I looked up to this guy. I never met him once. And now I'm shaking his hand in an event in New York inside of a club. Like, I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. So that kind of gave me the notion that anything is possible at any time. If I could see him bump into this guy that I looked up to as an entrepreneur when I was a young kid growing up in the UK, guy that didn't finish school, a guy that went through, I'm sure like the story's been told many times before, this guy was dyslexic and I managed to beat dyslexic to becoming one of the biggest business entrepreneurs in the world. Like I just, his story was one of them stories that resonated with me along with many others, like Diddy, like Jay-Z, like so many people who came from nothing. I kind of like the story of the people who came from nothing, maybe because it resonated with me coming from nothing. But when I met Richard Branson, I just felt like, okay, this is happening. This is something. I don't know. It wasn't a moment and I asked for his number. I didn't have no contact. It didn't matter. I just felt like, okay, you always wanted to meet this guy. Now you met this guy and said hi. What's next? What's the next chapter? Okay, that didn't mean that I was meeting him for this. Maybe I'm meant to meet him in the future and we're going to do business together. I don't know. I just looked at that as one of them parts of a block, a momentum, a landmark in my life. Okay, now you get to see the guy who you looked up to, this billionaire. It didn't change anything. I just remember taking a few wise words and I met CeeLo the same night, the artist CeeLo Green. I met him the same night. I just remember it was just one of those magical nights where I was like, okay, you landed in America. You're around one or two things. You're seeing one or two things. Absorb it all like a sponge. Learn every day and learn how to own it. Learn how to build the business. Learn how this works. Learn how that works. Absorb everything you come around. There's times in the beginning when I was around French Montana in the beginning of his career. French Montana and Max B was traveling up the East Coast, Boston, here, there, like, because they had songs that had broken local radio, little pieces and little points. And I learned off of those things in those early stages from traveling to towns to how I could see how I didn't like how this was done. I'm like, damn, this could be more professional. Oh, that could be done better. But like at the time, who would listen to me, bro? I remember in the beginning of Fetty Wap, Post's first tour. Post's first tour was with Fetty Wap. And I remember trying to put advice to one of Fetty Wap's team, his managers. Like I tried to give them a little advice or a little something. And they'd been in the game before me because Fetty Wap was already had records that was breaking. Post had one record with Iverson. I remember them looking at me like, why is this guy like trying to give me advice? But I remember like thinking to myself, am I passing my place giving this guy advice to what I think I see? Am I passing my place by like saying like I feel like this could be done better? I took it back from that French Montana era when I saw him on the road and I saw that later. I'm like, okay, just learn. Everything here is a learning curve. I didn't know I was doing my 10,000 hours. Everything that you do today is you building them 10,000 hours to get to you being a professional or the best at what you do. Because you've put in them 10,000 hours of learning that you didn't even know that you was picking up the learning curve. Then 10,000 hours is over, that's when everyone starts calling you a genius. When at the top you were saying genius, but really all you did was stay consistent to what was here. There's not really like, I haven't got the biggest, like you're saying, the billionaire student. We can't turn around and just say, hey, Sashin, I'll wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be the billionaire student. No, consistency is probably a big part of the billionaire student. Staying on goal, staying on track, not giving up, not saying no, taking no for an answer to what's going on here. Keep going. Even times when you think that what I'm doing could be stupid. I'm not saying if there's a time you doubt yourself or you will, listen to people. The little people around you, someone's going to tell you the truth. The inside brain is going to understand what's the difference on each shoulder. They'll pick it up and will understand to move to the future.
So Dre, what advice would you give to independent artists as well as entrepreneurs who don't have the resources and trying to make a name for themselves in the industry?
Yesterday, I heard a story from someone that's about to start working for me. I really took on and liked a lot of what they said, and I liked a part of their story, what they said when they was growing up. And they moved out. They moved out of mom's house. Their options were slim. And they didn't have no money. Do you know what they said that they did? they turned to e-commerce young. I remember also someone else I heard did the same thing. I asked him, like, how did you get, like, this kid was 19 years old, and I asked him, like, how did you do it? Like, this is a different age. It's a different time. I asked him, how did you do this? And you know what he said? I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford this and I couldn't afford that. So I started doing things online where I started to sell. I bought something cheap and I started to sell it, and I found out how I could get to people without spending money, which was actually the start of, wasn't the start, but in his brain, it was the start of him learning social media. So like, there's no excuses today. There's no excuses for, okay, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. You have the resources. If you can afford a phone, or if you can afford to watch this, if you can afford to press Google and ask for it and search it, someone else in this world has looked for the same thing as you. There's too many billions of us in this world that one of us didn't think of something close to it, even if it wasn't it. The answers are there on the computer. The answers are there on what we have today, the tools. You have the tools to build. Okay, so you don't have the money. Come up with the idea, what sparks from someone else who might have it. The idea might be $100. You don't have $100. You might have 10. But you might have sparked the idea that someone who has the $100 decides to borrow you $20 or $30 so you get closer to that goal of getting the $100 to buy that stock. Okay, wherever it was, I couldn't get what I needed for $100. Maybe I'm going to get $50 or $60 worth of the stock or worth of whatever it is that I'm buying, pencils, whatever. You could be a kid trying to buy lemonade. That's why I love the American lemonade stand thing. It's so good. When you're a kid, you learn to sell lemonade on the corner of your street. I call that, I don't know, whichever way you want to call it. Where I come from in London, South London, we didn't have no lemonade stand. So I call that the other hustle. I call that the parents who got money, or whether they didn't have money, they were teaching their kids at a young age to sell lemonade on the block, on the corner. Whether they wanted to call it the block or the corner because they lived in suburban America and it was, hi, Sarah, hi, John, you want some of our lemonade? It didn't matter what it was. You was teaching your kid to hustle on the block. So that was the start of your kid's 10,000 hours. So it doesn't matter what was going on. I take it back to that same thing. Them 10,000 hours, bro. Think about how many kids from the lemonade stand made it big today. I'd love to know that. I'd love to know that one. It's like saying, who made it big today from having a garage? You know how many businesses started from a garage in California? You know them stories about the garages in California? Hewlett Packard, Apple, this, that. They all started from a garage. So no one can't tell me about building these blocks. I'm building from, like what I told you, taking it to needle and thread and cotton. Build that. Stitch each block like a brick. Building piece by piece, you know?
So Dre, I know you're just getting started in the music industry. That's what I know and see of you and see the work you're doing. What's your vision for the industry in the next 5 years? Because this is a chess game for you. I can see it.
You mean, what's my vision? Where am I going? What's
your vision?
Where do I see it going?
Yeah.
Where am I going? What do I see?
So let's start off with you. What's your 5-year plan?
I mean, I wish I could tell you that. Like, I have it. And like, I have it in my mind, but that 5-year plan, you can't give out those plans, bro. You can't always tell people what's your 5-year plan. Maybe that's the part that needs to be sold, not told. There's seminars coming up too. Maybe me and you will do a seminar in LA and people will pay to come to it, and then they can find out the first couple of years of this brain what's in the 5-year plan. Because that 5-year plan is crazy. Sometimes I get butterflies. I wake up with butterflies in my stomach because my 5-year plan is on another level. Like, I'm looking to take it to the next level. I want to build empires upon empires that build empires. I want to break the rules. I want to disrupt, and just do things that's never been done before. Are you looking outside? Are you seeing what's happening in our world? Are you seeing that people are not being to have the same control that they used to have? Our world is changing from what we usually know it. So, of course, like, I'm not gonna sit back, bro. I'm gonna take this next 5 years and like try and build and try and be one of the next big Black businessmen that's ever came to this earth or ever did something that was great and built for his family. And it's not a color thing. I'm just saying that in this time, I now get a chance to be heard more because people are open ears and more willing to accept. I don't know what to explain it. I wasn't here before. I'm just going by what I see, that now more people are willing to listen to my story and more willing to like take on where did he come from. Whereas before, people might not care. Now it's not really a color thing. I think it's a class thing. People, our world is changing. Classism is what's happening. People are now not happy at classism. It wasn't really like, yeah, there's racism that goes on, but it's a class thing. The people are not happy with what the rich and the people who control this world are doing. They want to see other people win. They want to see people that's like them, that's come from places like them, win. They want to see a different turnaround. There's a revolution going on outside, and it's got us changed and our world around us changed. But I'm going to take that at the same time and have it empower what I was doing before and try and do better. Like my next 5 years, I want to be able to empower more people that look like me to be in better places and spaces.
I love that mission.
I would say that without me telling you my business plans, that's the first thing I would say. Next five years, I want to do. I want to have more people like me in the space getting more information. That's what I would like to do. And yeah, you're saying, Dre, to give them the information. No, what am I going to do? Start a school and say, hey, black students, let's just go and give you the information and do this? No, not everyone's ready for the information. You'll know when you're ready. I just want everyone else to be able to grow and to be able to get somewhere that look like me and learn something that I've learned and try and take it to another level from where I've taken it.
Dre, in closing up, the last question before we wrap this up, what does self-talk sound like with Dre London? What is that inner conversation of you telling yourself, man, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do it. This is historical.
It's not scared of failure. Like I said earlier, scared to fail. Knowing I've come from where I come from. Sometimes I think, is it letting my mom down, letting my family down, my inner parent, myself? I think it's more letting myself down. Knowing all the things I've been through, knowing all the struggles I've had to go through, all the grinding, all the things I've had to go through in my life to come to where it is today. I think my self-perseverance is not wanting the bricks, the Lego, to fall down. I don't want that Lego to ever fall down. So I keep working harder and harder and harder every day at trying to be a better person. Because if that's the first thing I do, then everything else will come together. So my next notion is like I wake up every day trying to be better, trying to do better than I did before the day before. And as long as you keep doing that, that self-perseverance to me is what helps me continue to be better and to grow every day. That self-perseverance. I won't stop. I'm not going to quit. So that self-perseverance will let me not give up. I'll look at it and say, nope, I woke up today. I got to do better than I did yesterday.
Dre London, thank you so much for being on the Millionaire Student Show. Truly appreciate your time, your wisdom, your knowledge, and just being you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well, Sashin. And I said, the Billionaire Student, man. You couldn't call your show. You couldn't call everything you do the right thing. The Billionaire Student. Are they ready to be a student? Are they ready to be a billionaire? You decide.